So in terms of introduction, what is an asset? An asset is being defined as something that is valuable that an individual or an organization own, and they can actually benefit from it, use it to generate income or use it to generate money. It's a resources with economic value owned by with the expectation that it will provide future benefit. And in the accounting context, you have what is referred to as fixed asset, and you have what is referred to as current asset. Your fixed assets are more or less like your physical asset, something that you can touch or you can hold. But when you're talking about financial assets, it could be a liquidity, something that you cannot touch, but they are actually still an asset. And that's why you see at times in the accounting content, somebody's telling you that you put your money in a fixed account. And when you put the money in a fixed account, you are expected to be what? Generating income, which is mostly referred to as return on investment from that money. And you could be an investor, put your money down for somebody to be investing, to be helping you to use that money to invest in businesses. So what you're actually expecting from that person is what is referred to as a return on investment. And you can have your current assets. Your current assets are more or less like cash and cash equivalent, your account receivable, your prepaid expenses. These are all current assets. Most of the time, your current assets are assets that doesn't have, their life cycle doesn't extend beyond 12 calendar months. So you consume them within a period of less than 12 months. And what are these current assets? These are more or less referred to as your stapler in the office, your office pencil, biros, printing papers, your toilet tissues. The reason why you take audit of these is because you want to replace them. You don't want to what? Run out of them, but your assets actually retain their value beyond 1 calendar year. And what are these? Your standing fan in your office, your air condition, your generator within your facility, your boiler in your hotel, your pumps if you're working in oil and gas environment, your movers or your excavator if you're working in a construction environment. If you're working in the transportation industry as a facility manager, what are your assets? Your vehicles are your assets. The tire that the vehicle uses are more or less like consumable, because tomorrow you could find yourself in GIG Motors as a facility manager. Tomorrow you could find yourself in Julius Berger as a facility manager. What are your assets? Tomorrow you could find yourself in aviation environment. What are your assets? So your current assets include cash and accounting receivable, while your fixed assets are those that are expected to keep providing benefits for more than 1 calendar year. Such as what? Your equipment, your building, and some of us that are actually into real estate. Your building are majorly your what? Your assets. And what is asset management? How do you manage your assets? It is a coordinated activity of an organization to realize value from that asset. And in facility management, it all depends on company-wise. There are some companies that uses the facility manager as they tie the scope and the job responsibility of an asset manager to a facility manager job description. But in some organization, you have a facility manager separate, and you have an asset manager separate, and you have their job description separately. But in some scenario, there is possibility of you as a facility manager also performing the function of an asset manager. And that's why they said it's a coordinated activity. Why is it coordinated? Because managing an asset is not the sole responsibility of a facility manager alone. The facility manager core responsibility in terms of asset management is to ensure that the assets are available as at when required. And it's to ensure that the assets are performing the designed task, just like an air condition. The responsibility, the scope of a facility manager is to ensure that the air conditioning is providing cooling as at when it is required. Then the accountant or the finance personnel in your organization is still part of asset management team, because the finance person can walk up to you as a facility manager asking you some certain information about the particular asset, that where was the asset bought, how much so far have we spent on that particular asset, and these are required and necessary to make some vital management decision when it comes to asset replacement. And that's why it is referred to as a coordinated activity. It's a systematic process of deploying, operating, maintaining, upgrading, or disposing of an asset cost effectively. For instance, we have a building around Ikoyi. This building has become obsolete, and we need to like destroy this building in order for us to erect another one. These are more or less like an asset, but the bottom line is that we're disposing this asset off, and disposing this asset off requires us to spend some money. And the money we needed to spend might include getting safety approval from the state government, getting legal approval, who are the contractor that is going to carry out the building demolition, how much will it cost us to do the demolition. We are spending money out. That is different from when a company has a vehicle as an asset, and the company decided that, okay, I need to sell this vehicle out because the amount of money remaining on that asset is already zero. And that's why you see in the accounting context, they call it book value. When your book value has become a zero, you can resell off that asset and recoup money back into the organization. So it is a coordinated activity of how to realize value from an asset through deployment, through operating, through maintaining, through upgrading, and disposing of an asset. And what are the type of asset management that we have? We have financial asset management. The financial asset management are people that, okay, you as an investor, you give them your money to invest that money on your behalf into diverse business, because these are people that have studied several numbers of businesses, and they know that when they invest your money, you have a certain percentage that they'll be giving you possibly at the end of every calendar year. That is financial asset management. Or possibly you put your money in a fixed account. Then we have infrastructure asset management. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is an infrastructure to federal government. Lekki-Ajah is an infrastructure to Lagos State government. There was a time that they put a toll gate. The toll gate is for them to recoup back the money that is being used in order to like put the asset into place. Then we have enterprise asset management, we have physical plant asset management, we have real estate asset management, and we have HR asset management. And why? Every employee in every company is an asset to every organization. And that's the reason why at times when you go for an interview, the interviewer or the HR is actually looking at the cost you as an entity is going to cost the company, rather than looking at the amount of money they are going to pay you in terms of salary as a take-home. So by the time you are negotiating your salary as you want to start taking 500,000 naira, they are already looking at how much are you going to be costing the company in terms of, because they have to pay pension on your behalf, they have to pay NSITF, they have to pay medical, they have to pay CHMO, and some other fringes that is going to be part of your salary. These are what I'm actually looking into. Now, that's the reason why you see most of the time they refer to HR as human capital management or asset managers. Please, can you help us move that speaker? Thank you very much. Then, asset management strategy. Every organization has an organization goal. And that goal determines the strategic plan of every departmental within that organization. And coming down to the strategic plan of a facility manager, you have to strategize your plan in such a way that it must be in line and in tune with the entire organization strategic goal. And with this, you have to like streamline, plan, manage your asset in such a way that it's going to support the overall entire organization need and entire organization goal. And that is where asset management strategy comes into place. And with that asset management strategy, it provides you a better understanding of how you are going to align, how you are going to in-tune your asset into what? Into portfolio. Then so that it is best meet the service delivery need of the organization in both present and in future terms. It also helps you to enable the organization asset management policy to be what? Achieved. Because every organization has policies around their asset management. And that's why either the facility manager is with the responsibility of managing the asset, or you have an asset manager whose core responsibility is the management of the asset. Either the facility manager or the asset manager must comply and must work in line with the company policy as far as asset management is concerned. Part of the policy of the company could be moving an asset from one location to the other needs some certain level of approval. It has to be what? Stick into. And part of the policy could be for us to replace an obsolete asset within our facility. These are the approval line. For us to sell off an asset, these are the processes that it entails. This policy must be what? Adhered to. Then what are the steps that's involved when you want to develop your asset management strategy? One, you need to have a clear understanding of the current situation of the asset. Current situation in the sense that what is the asset? What is the make of the asset? Where is the asset being located? What is the current condition of the asset? Can this asset serve the future requirements of our facility? If the answer is no, do we need to upgrade this asset, or do we go for an outright replacement? And where this comes into place is that you need to assign cost. What is the cost of replacing the asset? Then if I have to upgrade the asset, what is the cost of upgrading that particular asset? When the cost of upgrading and the cost of replacement is almost becoming equal, it is of best economic value for you to go ahead and make an outright replacement of that particular asset. And the first thing you need to do in asset management strategy is for you to understand the current condition of your asset. Do they mean the current and forecast future need of the organization? Is the funding base for operation, maintenance, and renewal appropriate and affordable? Do you have the money? Currently, do you have the money to replace the asset? If the answer is no, okay, what are the kind of maintenance you can put in place for that asset to still be in use, pending the time you are going to have a budget that can accommodate the outright replacement of that particular asset? These are step by step you need to follow in terms of asset management strategy. And like I said earlier on, there is asset management and there is facility management. These are almost the same thing, but the scope of their application different. When you are talking about asset management is applied to both the core and the support business processes. What are we saying about core? The core include how do we procure the asset? Who is the supplier that is going to supply all the asset? Who is going to do the installation for us? How do we commission the asset? Then facility management starts from after the commissioning. The facility manager look into the scope of support in terms of how do we ensure a good maintenance activity is being put in place for the asset in order to extend the life cycle of that asset. Who is going to be the vendor that is going to be carrying out this maintenance activity? How often will this maintenance activity be done? Quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, or annually? So that's why FM focuses on support businesses process. On the operational level, FM and AM, which is asset management, manage many services in the area of maintenance, operations, safety, logistics, and technical infrastructure. Both the asset manager and facility manager also use shared management concepts like asset utilization rate, asset register, asset replacement value, total cost of ownership. When you're talking about total cost of ownership, when you are talking about life cycle of an asset, the life cycle of an asset starts from when the asset is being commissioned. When the asset is being installed, commissioned, you talk about commissioning, maintenance, and disposal. And most of the time, I always use an acronym BAD to define this. BAD means when the asset is being built, which is when the asset is commissioned. A stands for alive. That is when you're talking about maintenance and operation of the activity of the asset. Then B stands for bad, when the asset is no longer what? Useful for the operation of the organization. Then that means you can either sell off the asset or dispose of the what? Or decommission the asset. But when you're talking about total cost of ownership involves the money you spent during the planning, during the design, during the manufacturing, during the installation, commissioning, operation and maintenance, disposal of that asset. The entire money you spend during these stages is referred to as total cost of ownership. The critical condition index, they also utilize similar analytical technique, method, procedure, and IT solution. These are information shared alongside both facility manager and asset manager in a scenario whereby in that company, you have a facility manager separate and you have an asset manager separate. The two of them can share vital information in order to make vital business decisions that will help the organization to meet up its entire organization goal. And what are those factors that differentiate an asset manager or asset management from facility management? The type of asset they manage differentiate them. For instance, I happen to be a facility manager in a real estate industry. Then I have a financial asset manager in First Bank. You can see that the type of asset the two of them manage differentiate. Then the purpose of the asset. One, a real estate manager is an asset manager in his estate. Why a financial asset manager is also an asset manager in a banking environment. One, the first one is generating money for the investor, while the second one is generating money through what? Rental. Then the life cycle of the asset. If I put money in my account, in my fixed account for just 1 year, is different from when I buy a luxurious bus and I put it into transportation. The life cycle is different. One has a life cycle of 1 year. That means I'm going to recoup my percentage interest after 1 year. But if I buy a luxurious bus and I put it on road to start taking passenger from Lagos to Onitsha, that is an asset. The kind of return I'm going to get is different from when I put my finance in a fixed deposit account. Then the organization goal of the asset or the owner of the asset or the investor differentiate an asset manager from what? A facility manager. Then the assigned scope of operation also differentiate the two of them from what? From each other. So what does the life cycle of an asset entail? It entails the construction or the design period, the operation time after the installation and commissioning. Then there is no how you talk about operation and maintenance, you don't talk about repair. You talk about repair, maintenance, upgrading. And when you don't actually go for upgrading, you think about outright replacement or decommissioning or replacement. That is all what the entire life cycle of an asset is all about. Then asset register. Why do you need an asset register in facility management? What is the purpose? How does asset register support facility management? An asset register is a record that clearly identifies all the assets of a business. Then two, it allows business owner to quickly retrieve information on an asset. It shows the value of the asset, the date of acquisition, and other details to compute for depreciation and tax purpose. And this is more reason why, as a facility manager, we seek approval to replace just ordinary pumping machine within our facility. And the finance manager is saying, so, sorry, it's not going to give you an approval because you are actually looking at service deliverable for the end users. But at the finance end, the financial manager is looking at the depreciation value on that asset because every asset has a certain amount of money right from the day the asset is being commissioned. There is a certain amount of money that is referred to as depreciation value that you must calculate and deduct, and that goes to your account statement at the end of the month. So when you are doing your accounting detail, your monthly accounting detail, this money goes into your what? Account statement. And at the end of the, you could have like 3 years. You could say you want to depreciate an asset for a total period of 3 years. Possibly something like, let's say, take an example of your generator. You say you want to depreciate your generator for a period of what? 5 years. And there is a certain amount of money because this money is the total amount of money that it takes you to procure that generator, the cost of procurement, plus cost of transportation, plus cost of every accessory that is required to install that generator, and plus labor, everything that you put in place to put that generator into use. That is the cost you are going to assign to that generator. Then you start depreciating it on a monthly basis until when that money completely what? Becomes zero. When that money becomes zero, then you cannot say the book value of that generator is zero. And at the same time, accountant also calculate what is referred to as tax on that particular asset at the same time. Then your asset register also allow you to keep track of assets and provide a fair estimate of their worth. How much is that asset? How many number of years do we have to depreciate that asset? And at what rate? 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, 2 million is going to be going to the what? To our account balance sheet at the end of every month as a depreciation cost. And this is the reason why when you take your document to your finance and your finance director is saying, sorry, he can't approve because you are looking at service deliverable to the end user while the finance director is actually looking at what? Depreciation, because he still has some money running on that asset. So for him to replace that asset, it's like you are increasing the depreciation value of that asset instead for that depreciation value to be going to zero. And these are part of what banks look into when companies are seeking for loan. These are part of what they consider before they grant a loan to some certain company. So what is the purpose of your asset register? It's keep record of the company assets, and you can retrieve their respective values and attributes in terms of what is the name of the asset, what is the name of the manufacturer, what is the model number, what is the serial number, what is the size of that asset, what is the dimension of that asset, when was the asset procured, how long will the asset take, then what is the warranty value on that particular asset. These are all information you can find inside your asset register. To simplify record keeping, the register becomes a reference for business uses, can also be used for depreciation purpose to verify the existence of the asset. It helps you to know where your asset is per time. Then to keep a master list of what is held and where it is held. What are those assets? Where are they located? You have a facility in Abuja, you have another facility in Ghana, you have one in Gabon, you have one in Sierra Leone. How many generators you have there? This is information you can easily retrieve from your asset register. And when you want to create an asset register, what are those information that you need? You need to decide and confirm the purpose of the asset register, decide on the method of organizing your asset register, identify asset by performing a physical audit or a workaround. And I often tell facility manager, robot will not do, neither your software. Your software cannot do physical audit for you. You could have software will not visit the asset physically. So most of the time, you might need a workaround or physical presence to check your asset to know that the asset actually still available. Create an account record for each of the assets. Conduct periodic audits to verify the accuracy of the asset register. And what are those information you find in your asset register? The asset name, the capacity of the asset, model number, serial number, the location of the asset, what is the current condition of the asset, how much was the asset procured, what date was the asset procured, who is the manufacturer of the asset, what is the description of the asset. The description is boiler, water heater boiler, generator, aeroplane, a ship, or your luxurious bus. What is the insurance coverage that you have on that asset? What is the warranty information? And most of the time, I try as much as possible to tell my facility management student that if any supplier tells you that he's going to give you 1 year warranty on a particular asset, please, you need to ask the supplier, what are those items covered under warranty on that asset? For instance, let me take an air conditioner for an instance. RG will tell you that they're going to provide you 5 years warranty on an air conditioner. But you know that your air conditioner is not just only air conditioner alone. You have an indoor unit, you have the outdoor unit, and the indoor unit entails your indoor fan, the control modules, the remote control, and the outdoor control, the outdoor panel, the outdoor condensing fan motor. You have your compressor, you have the condenser, and all those stuff that you can mention. But when they tell you they have 5-year warranty, you need to ask the supplier, what are those items that are covered under warranty in that air condition? Because at times they tell us they give us 5-year warranty. But when your indoor fan motor has an issue, that is when you're going to realize that that indoor fan motor is a consumable. It's not covered under warranty. And you just use the air condition less than 1 year. Or possibly your generator, the battery fails. Then they will tell you that the battery is a consumable, is not covered under warranty. Or possibly even the alternator failed. And they will tell you that the alternator is not covered under warranty. Then you start asking the question, what exactly is covered under warranty? Please, when you go back to your facility, as long as your asset is still new, please call back the supplier and let the supplier tell you what are those parts, what are those components in that asset that are covered under warranty. Date asset is placed in service, that is the commissioning date. Estimated life cycle of the asset. And these are more or less by the time we're doing facility condition assessment, facility condition, we'll be able to understand what is the, how do we determine the estimate life of an asset. It is not something that a facility manager can decide to do alone. It is a multidisciplinary activity. It must possibly at times include the MD CEO, the finance director, the facility manager, even the supplier of the particular asset himself. Because a generator you are using in Nigeria, compared to a generator you are using in Ghana, you can't assign the same estimated life cycle to the two of them. If you are giving generator in Ghana 10 years life cycle, you can't give generator in Nigeria 10-year life cycle, because in Ghana, generators stand as a standby for the grid. But in Nigeria, the grid stand as a standby for what? Generator. You run more on generator than what? The power. Then the salvage value, then assigned asset identification number. When you do your asset register, each and every of your assets must have an assigned identification number. Somebody dropped a question in the So an organization needs an asset register to do what? What is the purpose of an asset register to organization? One, it helps them to process the purchase of an asset in accordance with the organization authorization and record keeping procedure. So when an organization checks, when was this asset procured? How much have we spent on this asset? This asset is no longer just like you have within your facility, you have all your seats within your facility are iron chairs. And this is not meeting the current aesthetic look of your facility. It's not meeting the expected look of your facility. You can decide to change all this iron chair to a chair with ergonomic status. So the process of purchase of assets in accordance with the organization authorization and record keeping procedure. Then it also helps the organization to maintain an adequate accounting record of the asset cost, description of the asset, the location where the asset is. Then it helps the organization to maintain accurate record keeping for depreciation in terms of what? Accounting. It also helps the organization to provide management within the information to help plan for future asset investment. So the organization can use the asset register to determine if they are to upgrade or they are to what? Replace the asset. And if they are going to replace, and there's no financial backing, there's no financial opportunity to get that done now, you can now decide that, okay, in the next calendar year, when we're doing our budgeting, we can now add the cost of replacement into our budget, so that this will not affect our budget in the coming calendar year. Then it also helps them to record the retirement and disposal of the asset. So you can use, since you have an estimated life for that particular asset, you can decide that, okay, when you bring out your asset register, you know that, oh, by next year, I need to replace my air conditioner. By next year, we have a generator in Ghana facility that we need to replace. By next year, we have a boiler in one of the hotels that we're managing. We need to replace the boiler by next year. So when you are doing your budgeting, you know exactly how you are going to provide your operating cost and your capital expenditure, because replacing an asset requires a capital expenditure because it's a huge amount of money, which is quite different from your what? Your current expenditure. And that's why at times, these are part of the reason why you see an accountant turning down your approval when you are asking for approval, because he's looking at the fact that if you are to procure this, it's going to impact on your what? On your budget for that current calendar year. It might cause your budget to overshoot by some certain percentage. These are things that the finance expert, finance director, finance manager, CEO look at before they provide an approval. And most of the time, we as facility manager, we see that finance man doesn't like to approve. He doesn't like to sign approval. He doesn't like to provide approval. No. You have to understand that both you as the finance director or the CFO, you are actually working for the same common organization goal. It's trying to prevent cost, and you must also help him to prevent that cost. It's trying to reduce cost. You must also help him to reduce cost. But when you present your information, when you present your data, justifying it with the fact that the cost of replacement is also equivalent to the cost of repair, every accountant will listen to that, because he also doesn't want to waste money, because he knows that if he spend that money repairing that asset, there's no warranty that that asset will still serve a long-term period of time. So if we think of, okay, since the cost of repair, the cost of replacement is almost equivalent, then we definitely go for what? Replacement, because you know with the replacement, he has a lot of what? Advantage. So what are the type of assets that needed to be included in your asset register? Office equipment, motor vehicle, furniture. These are all your fixed assets. So let's quickly observe a short break. So by 6 o'clock, this is 10 minutes to 6. By 6 o'clock, we'll come back again and we'll continue from differentiating between asset and inventory. Thank you very much. 12 calendar year. Inventory, you take inventory of your asset and you take inventory of your consumable. They are more or less like consumables. And the reason why you take their inventory is because you don't want to run out of them. Assets are items of value that you must want to track closely, such as computer, and we've already discussed this. Inventory include items that are used once or last only a short time, and are also referred to as what? Consumables. Such items do not need to be tracked closely, but knowing the quantity on hand is valuable so that they can be what? Reordered. Example include office supplies such as staples, notebooks, and markers. Then I try as much as possible to advise my facility management student that the way you guide your assets jealously, try as much as possible to guard your engine oil and your diesel that same way, because this could be impacting on your budget. It could be impacting on your maintenance cost. Fine. Diesel and engine oil are not an asset. But if you are seeing the two of them with the kind of eyes that you're using to behold your asset, and you are guiding them jealously the way you are guiding your asset, is actually going to help you to save a lot of money within your facility. How register could Madam Joy, please put your please, can you move that speaker, please? Thank you. How your asset register could be costing you. When you don't maintain a very good asset, that means you don't know where your asset is per time. Apart from the fact that you don't know where they are per time, you don't know their current condition. And the third thing is that when you're doing your budgeting, you could be assigning maintenance cost. You could be budgeting for maintenance for an asset that is not even within your asset anymore. There's no longer available, and this could be costing you a lot. And these are referred to as what? Lost assets. A lost asset is an asset that has been stolen, stolen, or no longer what? Usable, but still appear on the company asset register. And these are also referred to as what? Ghost assets. And that's why you have to take your asset register by heart and ensure you do your asset auditing from time to time. According to Asset Management Resources, nearly every company has a problem with lost assets. And this is coming to an estimate on an average of 10 to 30% of assets are in fact lost assets. You can see 10 to 30% is not a token in terms of your what? Asset lost. And that's why you have to take a very good care of your asset. What are the dangers? What are the disadvantages? What do you stand to lose when you have a lost asset? You're going to have inaccurate balance sheet, in the sense that the asset is no longer available. The asset has been stolen, but you are still putting depreciation cost in your what? In your balance sheet on a monthly basis. Loss of productivity. You believe that the asset is still available, but they are not. So it is only at the time of use that you now realize that, oh, sorry, this asset is no longer available. And at that period in time, you can't do anything in terms of productivity. Added expenses. The asset has been stolen, you've lost the asset, and the asset still have a lot of money hanging in terms of book value. And you still have to replace this asset. Inaccurate CapEx budgeting. You'll be doing what? Capital expenditure budgeting. And asset misappropriation what? Fraud. These are all what you start to lose when you have ghost assets. And how do you do the storage of your assets? Asset storage and retrieval method. There are several numbers of storage that you can use. Organizations can face huge risk when assets are operated without asset information. In many organizations, keeping accurate detail of assets is an organizational challenge. Then it all depends. If your estate is just within like 6 blocks of flats, what do you need a software for? And Excel could be of a greater advantage, because when you want to use most of these asset storage software, you have to consider the fact that, does your company have the money to buy the software? Then, will the software resolve your problem? Then the third thing is that, will you be able to pay the annual license renewal for that particular software? If the answer is no, I will just advise you to still stick to what? The analog that you are using. This is compounded by assets often being situated at different geographical locations. Poor recording of changes out of this asset register, and poor definition of what constitutes a physical asset. So if you don't do asset auditing often, you may not be able to update all this data in your asset data system. And what are those things that can help you when you want to design your asset register? Equipment operation maintenance can guide you. Your warranty standard can guide you. As build drawing can guide you. There is a difference between as build drawing and engineering drawing. You get the engineering drawing before the commencement of a project, and you get as-built drawing at the expiration of the project. The master asset list, asset tagging, repair history. Asset tagging is when you assign an identification code to your asset. And there are several methods you can use in tagging your assets. You can use QR, as QR scan. You can use unique string. Unique string means it's more like an analog kind of assigning identification to your asset. For instance, you have an hotel you're managing in Lagos. You have 3 in Port Harcourt. You have 1 in Ibadan, and you have 1 in Abia State. For each of the states, you can use an abbreviation for each state, like Abia start with AB, Lagos start with LA, Abuja start with AB. Therefore, asset in Lagos, you can use LA slash, what is the name of the asset? Boiler slash, you can do the name of the hotel. These are means or ways through you can use a unique code for your to assign identification number to your asset. If you have an asset, you can use the name of the block of flat 1, water heater 1, or block 1, flat 1, water heater 1, block 1 slash flat 1 slash water heater 1. Because in that flat, you can have like 4 water heater. Flat 1, block 1, flat 1, water heater 2, flat 1, block 1 slash flat 1 slash water heater 3. Just on and on like that. So you can use the city, you can use the business unit, country, city, building number, floor rooms, or ASTM code. The ASTM code could stand as more like your serial number that comes alongside with what? With the asset, or possibly, or the model number. And when using your tagging, there are 3 types of tagging you can use. Let me show you. These are computer-based asset monitoring. Computer-based asset monitoring, assets are critical components of any business organization, but tracking those assets can be one of the most time-consuming tasks of the entire workday. You can use barcode to track your asset, and the advantage of all this computer-based asset tracking is that they help you to streamline your work. They make your work lesser when you are doing your auditing. It helps to make employee work more efficiently and productively. It also enables organizations to track save valuable time and scanners. They scan the asset code, they retrieve the asset information and send it to the central server system. Instead for you to like retrieve all this information on your paper and get back to your computer to start putting this information into the exact spreadsheet one after the other. But with all this, your computer-based scans code and all this stuff, it is easier for you to scan and retrieve the information, every information about the asset, and it go to your central server system and it upgrade the information about that asset. And it also helps you to ensure proper inventory. There could be human error when you are using manual or when you are using analog, but there is always human error is nearly impossible when you are using what? Software. And these are type of software you can use. You can use alphanumeric, which I've already mentioned, is a static one way. Then you use the location, the asset number, and you have to enter the information manually into the Excel spreadsheet. You can use barcode tagging system. It's a static one way. Then it is automated. It can retrieve the information and send to the central server system. Then the radio frequency infrared identification number, you can also use RFID. You can use quick response code tagging. Each of them has their own advantage and their disadvantage as well. These are all. Then those software that you can use is as far as facility management is concerned are all stated here for space management, for real estate, for facility asset management, for operation and maintenance, for building management, for computer-aided design, and all those stuff. There are several numbers of them that you can use. In terms of CMMS now, there are some companies that use Oracle, some use Peachtree, some uses PAT. It's all dependent. There are several numbers of them, but when you are choosing any of this software, The first thing is that you have to consider what is the exact information you want to retrieve from that software. That is one. What is the cost of that software? Will the software give you an after-sales service? Will the software service provider train your what? Your team on how to use the software? And will they also provide you after-sales? Then that software, can that software accommodate your current information and still leave room for what? Future expansion. These are factors you need to consider before you choose any of this software. And when you want to implement any of this software system, during the implementation, what are the things you need to consider? What are those things that you have to put in mind as a pre-planning stage? Then you need to assess the organization need in terms of what is the information you want to retrieve from the what? The software. Decide on the system implementation objective. Identify system requirements. What will be done with the information from the system? When you have ascertained this, you can now proceed to purchase and procure the software. Then you install the software and you start with implementation stage. And during implementation stage, how do you want to implement? Will the task take you 1 month? Will it take you 1 week? Will it take you 6 months? During the implementation period, what are those risks that you have to mitigate against? Don't forget, this is a new system you are bringing in place. A lot of your team might not get used to it. People will actually go to kick against it. How do you manage that change? How do you implement? Because if you don't manage that change mantra, if you don't manage that transition period very well, you might not be able to achieve the implementation. Then you have to have implementation plan execution, issue identification, risk management. What are the risks you are expecting? How are you going to mitigate against that risk? How do you manage change? What is the transition period? Implementation review. How do you review implementing? After you have implemented, how do you do review? To ensure that, okay, this has already been what? Accepted by the team and it's already working. Then during post-implementation involves continuous process monitoring and tracking. You need to keep monitoring. You need to keep training, continue to train and never stop training. Then people that will be inputting this information into the system. It's not a system that every Dick and Harry will have access to. There are steps, there are sub-steps for us, possibly for your low-level staff, like your technicians. There are
Sorry, we cannot hear again.
sorry for that small inch. Then you need to continue promoting the system value to staff. Promoting the system value includes letting the team know the positive. What is the impact? What is the reason why that system is being chosen among so many alternatives that you have already considered? Because along the line, you can see some of your team telling you that, why can't we use this software? Why not this? Let them realize
Audio is lost, please.
Okay. Yes, please kindly let's hold on for the facilitator. He's trying to get back here.
The difference between CMMS and CAFM and CAFM. And I said, you need to take approval from the get management approval first. Then what are those information you want to retrieve? Then get the list of assets you want to enter into the CMMS. Document all plan preventive maintenance. Select CMMS software that suits your need. Import any data you have from the existing system, even if it is spreadsheet you are using before. You need to like pull out those information and send them back into your CMMS. Add users and user groups, your supervisors, your managers, your senior managers. You add them to the group. Then add schedule maintenance and set triggers, go live, continuous improvement. Then when you are implementing CMMS during the implementation stage, you must plan ahead. Planning ahead means you need to plan ahead to know what is going to be the period of implementation. What exactly will people be using during the implementation stage? Then how do you manage results after the implementation? These are pre-implementation stage. Then what are those challenges you could face? Features and function, because in the CMMS, the way a pumping machine will physically appear is not the way it's going to appear in a CMMS. It's going to be appear in form of a function or a feature. So everybody that's going to be the user of this CMMS need to get used to the feature and the functions. How flexible is the system? How flexible is it with end users? How easy is it going to be for your world, for your team to quickly adapt on how to use it? The interface capability, in case you have a software you're already using before, and you're bringing in another one, during the upgrading period, the software you're bringing in, will that be able to accommodate all the information in the existing software that you have and still leave room for additional future expansion? The system security, how secure is this software? Because these information are more or less like vital information to you, because it is through this your CMMS that you are going to determine when you need to carry out preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance, your reactive maintenance, and your online maintenance. And there are a lot of vital information. You could imagine you are as a facility manager in oil and gas environment, and your CMMS system is shut down. You know the number of vital information you are going to lose. So that is where system security comes into place. Then the data that you have inside that system, how secure are those data? Because those data are what guides you on day-to-day activity. Those data are very vital. They are very useful for your day-to-day activity in terms of your maintenance and operation. So what is the difference between CAFM and other FM systems? Not to confuse you, a computerized maintenance management system with a CAFM. Consider an office in the workplace, ensuring that the office is properly inspected, maintained, and repaired is a CMMS activity because CMMS look into maintenance and operation. But CAFED is all about the staff and the office content, including chairs, table, locker, desks, phone, including their movement from one office to the other. So the CAFED look at the entire core operation of the facility. Why CMMS look at just only the maintenance and operation of the asset within the entire facility. Then the life cycle costing and procedure. I've already explained to us what a life cycle and what is the total cost of ownership is the other time. Developing an asset management policy, an integrated and multidisciplinary approach is recommended while developing this policy. Why must it be multidisciplinary? Because this is not what a facility manager can singularly sit down alone and design. It must include a facility manager, the senior managers, possibly the MD CEO, the finance director, and all the stuff must be what? Inclusive when you are deciding this. Clear direction of the asset management to ensure service delivery need form the basis of asset management. A life cycle approach incorporated to asset management again for you to gain what is referred to as what? Sustainability. Then what is the benefit of this strategic approach to facilitate asset management? Better location of resources, improve alignment of assets with what? Service and organizational expectation. Better integration of service planning and service asset planning. Improved process and accountability for capital and current work. More effective use and maintenance of what? Assets. Then proper disposal of assets. Every asset that has a beginning has an end. And when an asset has come to the end of its useful life, or when the service of that asset is no longer required within that facility, you do what is referred to as decommissioning, which is more or less like disposal of an asset. What is asset disposal? Most of the time, you often prepare for this when you are planning, during the planning stage of your asset. Because disposal, this is part of what is referred to as your total cost of ownership. A plan that documents the activities and costs associated with the disposal of an asset. You can dispose an asset and recoup money back into the organization. And you could dispose an asset and still spend money in order to dispose the asset. General part of a comprehensive asset management plan. Any activity associated with the disposal or the commissioning of an asset is referred to as what? Asset disposal. And this includes selling off of an asset is referred to as asset disposal. Demolition of an asset is asset disposal. Relocation of an asset is also an asset disposal because you want to relocate an asset from one facility to another facility. You are disposing of that asset. And this may be costing you money at the same time. An asset disposal plan should include forecast of the timing for future asset disposal, cash flow forecast, identifying income or expenditure associated with the asset disposal. That is, when you forecast income that you can gain when you sell off the asset, is part of asset disposal, or the money you are going to spend in disposing of the asset is part of asset disposal plan. Time asset disposal plan to ensure that what? The replacement assets are operational. In case you are moving one asset from one location to another place, you need to ensure that the asset you are using to replace the assets you remove must be what? Operational, and it must be able to fill in the gap of the initial asset and still leave room for any additional what? Extension. It must be ready to absorb the workload of the decommissioned asset. Just like you decommission a 150 kVA generator, you know that if you are to put another asset in place, at least you must try as much as possible. You can go ahead and put a 175 or a 200 kVA so that in the nearest future, in case there is need for expansion, the 200 kVA will still accommodate the workload of the existing 150 kVA and still accommodate the additional load that's being added to it so that the user are not inconvenienced needlessly. Asset disposal plan is an important component of a sound asset management plan. since disposal cost can be as much as 5% of the full life cycle cost or what of the asset. Replacement of an asset. What is replacement cost of value? The amount that you need to pay, the amount you need to incur, or you need to gain when an asset, to replace an asset at present time, according to its what? Current worth. When you understand the asset replacement cost, that means you have already understand approach to the end of the asset useful life. You've already understand what are the expenditure you are going to expend in replacing the asset when the need arises. And what are the necessary insurance coverage that you need to take? Or, for instance, you want to do a demolition. You can't just go ahead. That demolition, do you need to take safety approval? Do you need a legal approval? Do you need an SOP? Do you need a work management system to be in place before you can do the demolition? These are all, do you need to ensure, you need to provide an insurance for people who are going to participate in that demolition process. These are what you need to have an understanding of. These are the costs you need to anticipate at the expiration of an asset useful life. Asset tracking and management system. It is very, very necessary. It is required, and it's very, very important for you to keep tracking your assets. Otherwise, you are going to have what is referred to as ghost asset. And you know, when you have a ghost asset, you know the implication. You are actually apportioning money, apportioning cost, apportioning expenditure for an asset that is not even available physically. So you need to keep a close tracking of your asset. Asset tracking system needs speed up asset auditors and conduct asset tracking in real time. This will enable more efficiency in terms of planning, enable scheduling of necessary maintenance or service for equipment at appropriate times. In setting up an asset tracking system, you need to consider the following. How many assets do you need to track? What type of asset are you tracking? Where is the location of the asset? How many locations do you have within your entire organization? Are the assets already labeled? If they are not labeled, and you need to label them, what type of tagging are you going to use? Are you going to use QR scan? Are you going to use RFID? Will you use barcode or RFID tagging? Do you need real-time update, or can batch collection be used? Real-time updates will require you to have an app. And when you're going to have an app, you must have internet at your disposal, because that app will not function without internet, because having an app means you are dealing with cloud. What type of reporting will you need from the system? What type of information do you want to recoup from that system that you have in place? And this brings us to the end of asset management system. And like we actually agreed that by 6:40, we're going to put an end to the module. And like I said earlier on, Mr. Jama, I can see you. You happen to be the first person to raise your hand. Like I said earlier on, please don't ask relating to the assessment. Let your question be separate from the assessment. It could be the module that you already had in your facility. It may not be related to the current module that we treated today. So then I have Mr. Emiko Peter. Okay. Okay, Mr. Jamin, please unmute your speaker and go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Okay, Mr. Emiko Peter.
Okay, thank you for the lecture and thank you for everything. It was well explanatory and understanding. So it's more or less like I have, let me just say 3 questions.
Okay.
So in an organization
Okay.
where you have, you know, in this facility, we have something they call, these are FM company and client company. So my own company is not an FM
Mr.
company.
Jamin, come again, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, in facility, we have FM company and client company. So the company I
Okay.
work with is not an FM company.
Okay, it's a
So,
client company.
and from the standard that I met is, the first question is, who is responsible for making access tag? Or let me say, who is responsible for purchasing access tag? Is it the facility guy or the finance guy? The reason why I'm asking this question is, from my understanding, I know for you to track and asset the depreciation value and everything, I know there is a software which is being used, and I know there is always a guideline for like, okay, this asset, you have to place it on 5 years, you have to place this on 2 years. So after 2 years, the depreciation value will be 0. Because the reason why I have this idea is, like my office now, if you are employed, they are going to give you an office phone, and that office phone, after 2 or 3 years, if that office phone is still with you, after 2 or 3 years, if you resign, we always check the depreciation value to be 0, which is you are entitled to take the phone along. So my question is it the facility person that is responsible to purchase or to get access tag, or the accounting department? That's the number 1 question.
Okay.
So number 2, if you want to dispose an asset, you now ask the finance team that are managing the assets, checking the depreciation value, send the access tag to them to check. Then they now came back and tell you that the code is not found in their register. So, and I got this information from someone that I know that works in accounting office. From that person, the person said, so I just want to get a clarification to tell me I'm right or I'm wrong. If they check the depreciation value for an asset, if it is 0, we know it's gone. But if they are telling you that, okay, fine, this is the software, or this is where they check the depreciation value, then accounting or the person in charge is telling you, I can't find this particular in this my asset tag log, which I know this thing has been purchased for over 10 years. So what is the best approach for that kind of assets? Did you get my question, sir?
Yes, I do. You said you have 3
Okay.
questions. Am I taking the question
Yes,
number
so
3?
the third one is, who determine the year that you're going to place an asset on? Is it based on the cost price, or is there a particular a guideline generally for assets that, okay, if this is under this, the depreciation year must not be more than 3 years, or it's more or less like an internal thing that each and every organization, determine. So that's my third question. Thank you.
Okay. If I will understand you very well, the first question you ask is that who procure the asset tagging software? Every organization has their policy.
No, I mean the access tag. The access
I
tag.
know
Okay.
that who procure the asset tag.
Yes.
That is it the finance or the facility manager. If you actually followed earlier on, I said every organization has their policies and their processes. There are some certain companies that the procurement of every facility requirement is completely the responsibility of a facility manager. And in some company, they route every, even if it is a single pen, it must be routed through the procurement department. Even if the finance people need a software, they will tell the procurement department the type of software they want and who are the vendor that can supply it. They will give a detailed information to the procurement department. The procurement department is now responsible to procure it out. But because the software is not a facility maintenance software, it is a core accounting software. That's the reason why most of the time it is the responsibility. If the company agreed and put the procurement of every department, whatever you need in your department, you are the one that will procure it. So that means Finance will have their own contract, they will have their suppliers. Facility will have their own supplier. HR will have their own supplier. Marketing will have their own supplier. That same way. But if the company said everything has to be routed through the procurement department, that means it is the responsibility of the procurement department. But if it is departmental wise, then the finance manager will be the one, because they are the one that is going to use the software. The only information they might need from you is what are the details of cost we have expended on this particular asset. Then they can use their own asset. But in a scenario whereby you are both the facility manager and the asset manager in your company, you can work in line alongside with the finance director or the finance manager to determine what will be the best software you can use. Then the two of you can decide together on which of the software you can use, who is the service provider that can supply the software. So it all depends on organization policies and processes. Then the second question is that you said there is one particular asset that when you provided the code of that asset, the finance director is now saying, the finance personnel is now saying that they can't find that asset in their asset register, in their software. Yes, it's possible, because that means what that tells you is that that asset has become a lost asset. It has become a ghost asset. You as a facility manager, you believe that that asset is still within the list of the assets you have, but finance say that asset, they can't find it. So that means definitely asset auditing has been neglected. And that's why you see some company does their asset auditing every 3 months. Some does their own every 6 months.
Sorry, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
So what I'm saying is we have the assets is visible, more or less like, okay, there is this laptop or there is this wooden shelf that we find out that we are not using again. Then there is asset tag on it. We just take the number,
okay,
send it to finance. So they are not telling us that they can't find it on their system. So
two things can cause that.
Okay, sir.
Have it in the mind that the finance people are not with the responsibility of entering those tagging into the software. That is the core responsibility of the IT department. The finance people can only have a login detail provided by the IT guy for them to log in to access this. Now, if the finance guy is now telling you that they cannot see this asset in their asset in the software, definitely it is either that software has not been upgraded with all these things detailing into it, or that software licensing has not been, because once you ensure you are paying for your license and you are doing your auditing, once you complete your auditing, the system is expected to automatically update itself and update the list of all the assets that you audited. And the one that is not available, the system is expected to give you the detail of assets that are not available. And this ought to have been corrected long before.
Okay, because the reason why I say this is because this particular department, they are the one in charge of the software. They are the one that is managing all these assets.
Yeah.
In fact, this asset that we're talking about,
if they are actually the one managing the asset, you are not the one inputting this. When you do your asset auditing, and this is a software, it is expected that the software you are using capture the asset tagging and relay with the central server system. And it must update that, okay, this asset is available, this asset is not available. So if the asset is available physically and in the software is not available, that means something is wrong. It's either somebody is not updating that software, or if these are to be what? Enter into the software manually, that means there is human error there.
Okay. So from your expert advice, what will you advise we should do if you want to dismiss that kind of asset?
If you're going to dismiss that kind of asset, you need to ensure that there must be a detailed process. You need to write this asset, this is the detail of the asset from your asset register. These are the complete full detail of this asset. This asset is still physically available, but software-wise, it's no longer available. Then the IT guy has a responsibility, because for you to dispose that asset, it must take an approval from the MDCO. Everybody who happen to be a stakeholder must sign that detail that that asset must be what? Disposed of. So that means that is no longer a unilateral decision. It's not a decision that only a facility manager can take alone.
Thank you,
It
sir.
has to be a multi. So everybody must be participative in disposing of that asset.
Thank you, sir.
Then the third question you ask is that who determine the life cycle year of an asset? If you listen very well, I said vividly, I said it is a multidisciplinary activity. And by the time we come to facility condition assessment, we're going to dwell into that very much. It is not the responsibility of a facility manager to decide. It's not a unilateral decision. It is a multidisciplinary. It must include the facility manager. Even most of the time, you must ensure that you include the asset supplier, the person that supplied the asset, because it has one or two inputs as well. You have to include the finance director, the finance expert. You have to include the procurement department. MD must be there. So that's why it has to be a multidisciplinary. It's not a unilateral decision that somebody can just evaluate and take. The reason why you function as a facility manager in designing this is because based on your experience as a technical person, you can decide that, okay, an air condition, this is the number of years that air condition can last. If we're running this air condition 24 hours, this is the number of years that an air condition can last if we are running this air condition every 12 hours in a day, based on your technical experience. So I hope that answers your three questions, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Peter, Mr. Abayomi, you're going to be the third person, and Mr. Julius, you're going to be the fourth person. Yeah, Mr. Emiko Peter.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mr. Abayomi.
Thank you
Mr.
for
good evening.
thank you for the class today. So I want to ask in terms of depreciation of an asset in the asset register. So how do you determine the amount that should be depreciated from an asset on a monthly or on a yearly basis? For
No,
instance,
what you're talking about, you don't depreciate assets on a yearly basis. You
Okay.
do depreciation on a monthly basis, and that forms part of your balance sheet. That is the core responsibility of a finance person. They are the one that's going to do the calculation. The only area where you function is that you support them based on your technical experience to tell them that, oh, fine, if we buy a generator in Nigeria, if we are running this generator every 12 hours in a day, this generator can only last for 3 years. If we are to run the generator every 24 hours in a day, this generator can only last for 15 months. So that's where you come in. So they are going to take that 15 months as the number of year they are going to depreciate that. Use that one to calculate what is going to be the depreciation value. So the function of the accountant is the complete function of an accountant.
All right, no problem. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Abayomi, go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, good
Mr.
evening,
Abayomi.
sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Abayomi. Good evening, Mr.
Thanks for the impartation today. I'm asking a question in the essence that you made mention of the CAFAM and the CMMS. Can you hear me,
Mr.
sir?
Abayomi? I can hear
Yes,
you. Go ahead.
okay. Okay, you made mention of the CAFAM and the CMMS.
CAFM and CMMS, yes.
CAFM and CMMS, yes. So now I looked at because for sometimes there's an organization I helped in putting the asset together. Fine, most of what we have on the asset list that that was on these notes that we should have on the asset list were not included in what I did for them. And unfortunately, you said that the CMMS, if I'm right, also track the maintenance.
It's completely for maintenance activity in every facility.
For maintenance activities. Okay. Yeah. So because I was looking at what would be I lost some audio at some point in time. So that's why I'm asking that what is the best one that we should recommend? Does this the CMMS that include maintenance activities, can someone incorporate it into can someone suggest that they make use of that software?
It all depends on how expansive your facility is. If your facility is just a 3 block of flat, what do you need CMMS for? These are something you can still do with Excel spreadsheets. But
No,
you
what
can,
I have presently, what I did sorry, sir, what I did presently was that they have it on an Excel sheet.
yes, I'm saying you can have it on
the
an
Excel
sheet. If your facilities is not as bogus as it is, if you have a facility that like a real estate that you have just like 3 block of flats, and the number of flats you have there is just like 10 or 15, you may not need a CMMS. But in a scenario whereby you have somewhere like that 1,000 in that kind of environment, it's good. You can go ahead because you need to justify the cost you're spending in having a CMMS put in place. If you happen to be a facility manager in oil and gas industry, there's no how you won't use CMMS because you could be having pumps running into hundreds. If you are working in somewhere like all these Max-Migold generators, there's no how you won't have a CMMS because you could having generator pan Nigeria running to over 1 million that you are maintaining for clients. So how expansive your facility is will determine if you actually need this software or not. For instance, if you want to talk about asset software, if you are somewhere, an industry like First Bank who use an asset software compared to someone like you that you just have like 7 generators, what do you need asset software for? So how expansive your facility is will determine if you have to use a software or not.
Okay, thank you, sir. But what if you are to incorporate your depreciation factor? Now, where I'm currently in an hospital.
You can't have depreciation in CMMS. It's completely
No, I'm saying that I'm back to, sir. Okay, I'm back to using an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
Now.
Yeah.
So currently now we just where I am presently is as an hospitality sector.
Okay.
And then we just did some renovation and some assets we have gotten like chairs and other things. And then, well, according to my manager, it was like they are looking at the depreciation over a 5-year period.
Yeah.
So how do I manage that with the current asset list that we?
The depreciation is the completely core responsibility of a finance person, not your core responsibility. The only area where you provide support for them is for you to tell them how long that asset will last, how long will that asset will be operational. So if you tell them it is 5 years based on your technical experience, they take that 5 years and some other information from their end and use that one to calculate what will be the depreciation value.
Okay, so in this case now, if I want to have, I'm personally not in charge. I'm not privileged to have the assets register with me. But I'm looking at creating an asset register whereby I can incorporate maintenance, how much I can incorporate to be able for me to be able to also that whenever there is a damage, like you said, that we need to present if the maintenance cost is almost as the cost of replacing another with a new one. Now I want to incorporate that into my own spreadsheet so that at every point in time I can monitor the progress of what we spent monthly on maintenance, repair, and all these things, so that this information can be very useful for me to tender if there is need for these things to be completely replaced or repaired, rather than where we have a loggerhead with the account finance that will say this thing is still on a depreciation factor and then we can't replace it outrightly now.
Yeah, Mr. Abayomi, let's look at this current slide that I'm sharing now.
Yes, I can see it.
This is all information you can find in your asset register. Then if you are now want to keep a track record of how much you are spending on that asset, what you actually need is called an history card. The history card, you put the name of that particular asset, the serial number of the asset and the model number, and possibly the location there. You can now decide, you can do a ruling, the date, the nature of the breakdown, the name of the spare part replaced, the amount of money on that spare part, warranty status, then you can now create a column where you sign. What you actually needed for that is history card. You can use that one to support your asset register. It's possible.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
You're much welcome. Yeah, Mr. Julius, go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
Good
My
afternoon,
question is
Mr. Julius.
all right. So currently I'm managing a place like a mall, and I've been having one of this issue, but because of this asset lecture this evening, it opened my eyes. So I just want to put this out for a clearer understanding.
Okay.
We have currently just one generator,
Okay.
a 1000 kVA.
Okay.
So when I resumed there, I saw a 500 that was actually old. And I was asking for why is it not working. I was giving series of why it has not been working, because they've spent so much on it and the thing is not working.
Okay.
So it's okay because they have done their budget before I came in. So I was asking, is it possible for us to get a backup? Because just like you said earlier, generators stand to be the main source now, and NEPA is like the backup.
Okay.
So I said, okay, can we get a 700 kVA because it's a more. And I've been writing and writing, and I've been made to understand, oh, we don't have the form, we don't have the form. But the thing is that we're using this particular generator more than the hours that we should use, because it ought to be like a backup to our light. But unfortunately, we're not really having that light the way we ought to be. So my problem is, I am between myself and my job. At the point, the diesel that we are consuming is the 1000 kVA is much. And then to service the generator alone is about 2.something million naira when it is due for service. So I'm just having this issue. I'm like, is it that I'm ineffective on my job because I've not been able to get the second one to stand as a backup to that one? So I'm just having this confusion. So I just asked for your professional advice on what do you think I can do better to ensure that I get a backup generator for my work?
When you say you need a backup generator, you said the current one you're having is a 2000 kVA. Because, you know, for them to have put in a 2000, the first thing I will advise you to do is that, have you conducted what is referred to as load schedule?
Yes, we have.
So you need to understand what exactly is the expected load within that facility, and what is the capacity of the generator you provided. So if that generator is higher than the expected load, you can start thinking about how you can reduce the load. Then when you say you need a backup, fine, you're actually looking at deliverable to the end users. But the company, the organization is actually looking at finance. Because you can, currently now, 200 kVA should be as costly as almost about 60 million naira. When you are talking about 2000 kVA, you're talking about closer to almost about 700 million naira, or possibly over $1 billion. The company might not have the capacity, financial capacity to do that. Fine. You are bleeding in terms of diesel cost that you are bleeding on, because the company doesn't have the financial capacity. I can assure you there's absolutely nothing you can do. The only thing you can do in the purview of fulfilling the ethics of the profession is for you to keep reminding the organization the amount of money you are actually losing with that current generator, and what is the amount of money you will eventually be saving if you have to replace this generator or you have a standby in place. This is what you actually needed to be doing on a monthly basis. I've had that kind of challenge before. And how I got it resolved is that I make sure I do more or less like a weekly cost of how much we're losing in terms of diesel and in terms of maintenance on that generator. And I provide that report on a weekly basis. I will zoom it up on monthly basis. Second month, I had month one and month two together, send it as a report, and then make sure it gets to my MD. So by the time you are doing it on a monthly basis, somebody will realize somewhere that we're actually losing money. This is how much we have lost so far. Let's do something about it. That's what we need to continue doing. On a monthly, make it a weekly kind of report. Put a weekly report forward, telling them how much you are losing in terms of maintenance costs, in terms of diesel cost. And if this is being replaced, let them know how much you'll be saving in terms of maintenance cost and in terms of diesel cost. Do it on a weekly, monthly, quarterly. Somebody will reason somewhere someday and listen to you.
Thank you so much.
You're much welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Isaac Kalu, that will be the last question for today. But you can get my WhatsApp number from Barakat. So if you have any other question, you can chat me up. I'll definitely provide it. Yeah, Mr.
Right,
Kalu.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much
Good evening, Mr. Kalu.
Such a very interesting, wonderful lecture. We really appreciate. Yes, despite the little interruption, I want to first of all let me address the person that just dropped off now. If he's saying that they have only one generator, that the backup is that the electricity supplies from the mains. I don't know how that works for them, because a very big mistake they are making if that's what they are doing. What if they wake up one morning and the generator refuses to power? So what do they fall back on? So it's some of the things that they need to consider, because to me, I believe that every facility should and must have two generators. One serve as a backup to the other one. Should there be any eventuality, there be any issue, any incident that may warrant them to say, okay, let's use this other generator alternatively, because you will not be hoping on NEPA, IKEDC, and say your own backup. What if they fail you when this other one it has issue and they fail you? That means the person will not have anything to fall back on. That is, by the way, I just want to chip that in. So my own is that the reason why I raised my hand is I have a facility that in my company, our head office, we have we are currently using use generators, and we depend on both generator and the public mains supply. And now the company has given me the mandate that they want to explore the possibility of making use of solar panel, inverter solar panel.
Okay.
Yes. So now they want to know, I should draw up a cost benefit analysis to show that the inverter is going to be better compared with the generator we're using and the light. You know, we are band A, and they have increased their tariff from 73.4 to 225, more than 150%. So we used to pay like 3.something million, and now we are paying 11 million. So no company survive through such means. So I'm trying to find out if there is a guide of what we are going to or how I'm going to go about estimating the cost we'll be saving for the company. Considering that we have like 120 ACs in the building, yes, with other equipment. So how do I go about this?
I think the first thing you need to do is that, first of all, for every three-phase equipment, because within the facility you have single-phase equipment and you have three-phase equipment. Yeah. For all the three-phase equipment, I will advise you don't go on solar. Neither will I advise you to go on inverter, because the power bank you are going to require, plus the number of solar panels you're going to require, is going to be enormous, and it's going to be huge compared to the cost you are trying to save. Now, the only thing you can do is this. Try to get an electrical consultant to help you analyze all your single-phase equipment within that facility. All your single-phase equipment include your lightings, your common area lightings, your cameras, your public address system, UPS, and all those computerized, whatever. Those one, you can combine and put all those one on inverter or on solar, because they are single phase. The load will definitely drop. So that will drop your cost in terms of PACL. Then in terms of generator capacity, it will also affect your generator capacity. Maybe possibly you have a 500 kVA generator. Eventually, you may eventually come down to a 350 kVA generator. You can drop all those load. So you can just try as much as possible to put all your single phase load on inverter and solar. That one is possible. While you retain the other 3-phase and the other major, like all these, your 2 horsepower air conditions, let them be on normal generator and normal power. Because if you are going to put your air condition on inverter, the load and the battery might be extensive. So you can decide, and because of that, you can decide you want to change all your air condition, because there are a lot of inverter air condition that are available now. But you might not be able to change all your air condition because you want to change that cost. So you need to look at, first of all, get an electrical consultant to come around, to come and analyze all your single phase load for you. Out of those single phase load, what are those loads that you can drop? If you are having a CFL lightings, you can start dropping those CFL lighting and use LEDs.
Yes, we have already done that.
So you can put all your street lights, your common area lightings, all the lighting within the facility. You can put those one on inverter. Your computers, put them on inverter. If you have ceiling fan, wall standing fan, put all those on inverter. Your central server system, let them be on inverter. Your cameras, let them be on inverters. Your pool lights, let them be on inverter. So with that, you're going to reduce some certain percentage of your load. And that is coming at a cost saving for you.
Common light area.
So thank you everybody for today's class.
Okay. Sorry, 1 minute.
Okay, sir.
Finally, lastly, how do I determine, because I keep on hearing that old AC with the new AC, if you compare the two, that old AC consume much light and new AC does not consume light. So how do we determine how many the quantity of light they consume, the power they consume?
Actually, that is the core responsibility of your electrical guy, but I can give you a very simple calculation, because your air conditioning is using what we refer to as alternating current. That is AC, not the direct current. And I remember then in physics in those days, we've been told that power is directly proportional to what? Current. That is, your P is equal to IV, while your I stands for the current and V stands for the voltage. So now, because the power that your air conditioning is consuming is an alternating current, that's where your power is now equal to IV multiplied by cos phi. You know, in secondary school, you are talking about Pythagoras theory, you talk about cos, you talk about SOHCAHTOA, sine, cosine, and tangent. Yes. That cos is cosine. And that is what you refer to as power factor in your generator and your power. And power factor is mostly taken as 0.85. So if the current taken by your AC is 5, and your voltage, if the AC is single phase, the voltage is 220 to 240. Taking 230 as average, you have the 5 multiplied by 230 multiplied by 0.85. That determines the power consumption of the air conditioner.
Okay, whether 1 horsepower, 2 horsepower, 3 horsepower?
That is the same formula you can use to calculate power for any electrical equipment.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're much welcome. So thank you everybody for today's class. See you on Friday again on fertility condition assessment. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Good night. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night.